London, September 1485. On a Monday morning, the Lord Mayor of London feels a damp patch spreading across his back. By noon, his shirt clings to his skin as though pulled from a river. His pulse races, his attendants cannot cool him. By Wednesday, Thomas Hill is dead. His successor, Sir William Stokker, takes office the same week. Within days, Stokker is dead too. No wound, no plague sore, no lesion of any kind. Nothing but sweat, soaking through bedsheets, pooling on stone floors, running from the body faster than attendants could wipe it away. In 6 weeks, it will kill an estimated 15,000 people. Then it will disappear. This is their case file. In August 1485, Henry Tudor had crossed the English Channel with a small army, many of them French mercenaries, to seize the English throne from Richard III. At the Battle of Bosworth Field, Richard counted on the support of Lord Stanley. But Stanley held his forces back. He blamed an outbreak of illness among his men. Richard, fighting without those reinforcements, lost his crown and his life. Henry marched into London as Henry VII, but something else had arrived with him. Within weeks, a new illness appeared. It struck without warning, most often at night or in the early morning. It began with a feeling of dread, a sudden, causeless apprehension, followed by violent cold shivers and pain in the neck, shoulders, and limbs. Then came the sweat. People called it the new acquaintance. It spread so quickly through London that Henry VII's coronation was postponed. Nobody understood where it came from. Nobody understood why it killed some people in under 3 hours and left others untouched. It would return 4 more times over the next 66 years. Then it would vanish as if it had never existed. The first epidemic tore through London in 6 weeks. Contemporary chronicles estimate 15,000 dead, up to 1 in 3 of the city's population. 2 Lord Mayors and 6 aldermen, the men who administered the city, died within a single week. Those who could afford to flee did so. Those who could not stayed behind and waited. The disease followed a predictable progression. First, the apprehension, a sudden, causeless dread. Then the cold stage. The body shivered, the head pounded, the joints locked with pain. Within 30 minutes to 2 hours, the sweating stage began. The skin ran with perspiration. The pulse raced. The chest tightened. Most patients became delirious, calling for water they could not keep down. In the final stage, victims experienced an irresistible desire to sleep. Attendants were told to keep them awake by any means. Shaking them, talking to them, pressing rose water or aromatic vinegar under their noses. If they slept, they rarely woke. Physicians also forbade exposure to open air. Blankets were sewn to the bed, so the patient could not uncover even a hand. The treatment for a disease that killed through sweat was to make the patient sweat more. The chronicler Edward Hall put it plainly. Some were merry at dinner and dead at supper. Alive at midday, gone by evening. Those who survived the first 24 hours almost always recovered fully. The disease disappeared by the end of October 1485. It returned in 1508, less severely. Again in 1517, when Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, the king's most powerful minister, contracted the disease. He survived and then fell ill again and again. Parish records suggest he was struck 4 times in a single summer. Survival conferred no immunity. Then came 1528. In June of that year, one of Anne Boleyn's ladies-in-waiting fell ill. Henry VIII, the son of the man who had first brought the disease to England, left the palace and began changing his residence daily. Anne, his second wife and the woman who would reshape the English church, was sent to her family home at Hever Castle in Kent. There she contracted the disease. So did her father, Thomas Boleyn, and her brother George. Henry did not visit. He dispatched his physician, William Butts, to Hever with a letter written in French. In it, he told Anne he would gladly bear half her illness to make her well. He kept his best physician for himself. All three Boleyns survived. Others were not as fortunate. Anne's brother-in-law died that June. A senior courtier died at his estate in Warwickshire. Thomas Cromwell, then a rising lawyer, not yet the king's chief minister, lost his wife and both daughters. He survived. Within a decade, he would be the most powerful man in England after the king. In 1540, Henry would have him executed on Tower Hill, charged with treason and heresy. The French ambassador, Jean du Bellay, reported that 2,000 people had died in London by the end of the month. The 1528 epidemic did something no previous outbreak had done. It crossed the English Channel. The disease appeared in Hamburg and killed more than 1,000 people within weeks. It spread through Scandinavia, then east into Poland and Russia. It did not enter France. It did not enter Italy. The disease reached the English-held port of Calais and stopped. No explanation was ever offered for this boundary. By the end of the year, the disease was gone. In 1551, it returned for the fifth and final time. The disease swept through the university towns of Oxford and Cambridge, through Shrewsbury, through London. It killed so quickly that titles, estates, and inheritances changed hands within hours. A son could inherit his father's rank and be dead before the paperwork was drawn. In some families, the line of succession shifted twice in a single day. In the same outbreak, a physician named John Caius was practicing in Shrewsbury. Caius had trained at the University of Padua alongside Andreas Vesalius, the anatomist who would reshape the understanding of the human body. He watched the disease move through the town. He documented its symptoms, its stages, its speed. The following year, he published a book, or Counsel Against the Disease, commonly called the Sweat. His advice to the public was specific. Avoid evil mists, abstain from rotten fruit, and above all, do not fall asleep. It remains the only detailed clinical account of the illness ever written. The disease never came back. More than 500 years later, no one knows what caused the sweating sickness. No pathogen has ever been identified. No biological material from victims has ever been tested. The mortality rate, estimated between 30 and 50%, is drawn entirely from chronicle records, not systematic data. What is known is what the disease was not. Contemporary physicians distinguished it clearly from plague. No buboes, no skin lesions. It was not typhus. It was not malaria. It presented with a pulmonary component, chest pain, difficulty breathing, that none of those diseases shared in the same combination. The leading modern hypothesis points to hantavirus, a family of viruses carried by rodents that can cause hemorrhagic fever and acute pulmonary syndrome in humans. In 1993, such an outbreak among the Navajo people in New Mexico produced symptoms that closely matched historical descriptions of the sweating sickness. Sudden onset, profuse sweating, pulmonary distress, rapid death. The causative agent was transmitted through contact with rodent droppings. The theory has significant weaknesses. Modern hantaviruses do not appear in a series of fixed outbreaks and then vanish. They are rarely transmitted from person to person, while the sweating sickness appeared to spread through close contact. Wolsey's 4 infections in a single summer suggest the disease conferred no lasting immunity, another departure from typical hantavirus behavior. But in 2026, an outbreak of Andes hantavirus on a cruise ship demonstrated the point on a new scale. At least one strain in the hantavirus family can spread between humans, the same property that contemporary physicians attributed to the sweating sickness 500 years earlier. And there is the class inversion. Modern hantaviruses strike rural populations hardest. The sweating sickness killed the wealthy and the clergy in disproportionate numbers. The poor were largely spared. No one has explained why a disease apparently associated with rodents would favour the richest households in England. Other proposed causes include anthrax, relapsing fever from tick-borne bacteria, and an unknown arbovirus, a virus transmitted by biting insects. None have been confirmed. The exhumation and testing of victims' remains has been proposed but never carried out. The sweating sickness remains, in clinical terms, undiagnosed. The disease left almost no institutional legacy. There was no public health authority in Tudor England capable of recording, studying, or responding to an epidemic. The Crown's response, across 5 outbreaks, was personal. The monarch fled. What the disease did leave behind was one book. Caius's 1552 treatise became one of the earliest published descriptions of a single disease written in English. It established a precedent for epidemic documentation. The idea that a physician should observe, record, and publish an account of an illness as it moved through a population. Caius used the reputation and wealth he gained to co-found Gonville and Caius College at Cambridge, which became one of England's leading centres for medical education. The disease may also have altered the line of succession. Prince Arthur Tudor died at Ludlow Castle in 1502. He was 15 years old, the eldest son of Henry VII, the king who had first marched into London with the disease at his back, and heir to the English throne. The sweating sickness is one of several suspected causes. His wife, Catherine of Aragon, survived. Arthur's death made his younger brother heir to the throne. The same Henry, who would one day flee from Anne Boleyn's sickbed, break with Rome, and reshape the English Church. One illness, no name, no cause, no cure, no trace. 5 times the sweating sickness arrived in England without warning. 5 times it killed in hours and disappeared in weeks. After 1551, it never returned. No one has ever identified what it was. The only record that proves it existed is a book written by a man who watched it kill. One question for the comments: what would modern medicine find if they exhumed the victims? The next case on this channel, a laboratory where the subjects were human and the results were never intended for publication. This is the sealed ward,